Hello everyone and welcome back. Been doing a lot of work on the Galactica here. Let me show you the landing bays. We got the photo etch in. It's all folded up and built. And then what I ended up doing for these windows here and the little launching bay tubes, and it's doing a forced perspective kind of thing when you look inside there, is took a clear scotch tape or foggy scotch tape and put it over top, and it just painted the backside red. As you can see there, I just painted the backside of it red, and back here in there red, and then that'll give you the red color when you look inside there. And it's going to be hard to see on camera, but yeah, so that came out good. And then did that, painted this area so all that looks good when you look inside, and it's working fairly well. These are actually designed for the Mobius kit, but they're working fine in here. The only problem is that I wish they could scooch up a little more. They're supposed to be kind of up a little more, but these corners here hit on this, so what I had to do is kind of push it up and then kind of keep placing it until where it just didn't hit anymore, and that's about where they fell. If they would have pushed up more, because there's little angles on the photo etch base, if I had it up there, it was scraping and not allowing it to squish together, and mainly because these corners, I believe. So I just, like I said, I just kept shoving it back and then tried it, and nope, and pushed it back and then tried it, and I'm like, oh, that works, and then gave it a little notch forward again to see if it still worked, and I was like, nope, so I give it a little tap back again, and then I marked it with a pen, and then that way I had a point where it needs to set when I glue it in, so I get that same spot again. But it's coming on good. But here's our underneath, and here's the lighting we did for in the launch pods, or bays, or whatever you want to call them. I just use 3 simple strip LEDs, the inexpensive, 3 per whatever 2-inch or whatever that is. But in here, I figured I could, because everything's a colored window in a sense. So I went with, and since I replaced these in the Enterprise with the warm white, because I wanted that incandescent bulb look that the TOS Enterprise had, I had these to use up. And it's like, I don't need high density in here. It's a small enclosed area that light can bounce around a lot. So I went with 3. And these will light up my launch tubes. The last 2 on this strip, I painted red to give them more of a red lighting back here, but I didn't want it overpowering. Sometimes I see them, it's like the launch, the launch and landing bays are really red, and if you look at the show, it gets pretty red, like especially in the bridge when there's a red alert, when they're under like attack and they have their shields up, it's really red. So that's why I did a couple red windows on the bridge, even though I imagine most of the bridge would be red, because it's a pretty big area to show on the TV show. But I did this one fully red all the way across. This one I painted fully red, and then I went back and scraped like almost half of the red away to give a little more white lighting in here, because of when I just had the white light was overpowering it. So I figured if I would red this one, then that was too much red. So I'm like, let me see if I can scrape. So I just took my number 11 exact blade and just scraped a little bit of that transparent red off. And now it gives me red and white. And the red kind of is more this way where I want it, towards the entrance. But then you can still see in these bays really good if you kind of line this up. This red light's right over this area. And this one's kind of here, and it gives us the red here, but it gives me the white to glow these ceiling lights white. And then this one definitely, because it's right here. And then I put some silver reflective tape that came with my old AMT Star Destroyer. It works really good. It's really thin. It sticks really well. Goes around contours. And then the rest of these can be white. These launch bays are lighting up pretty good. This one's not so good because it's really hard once you put this down. Is this the right side? No. Once you put this down, there's not a lot of room between this and that wall. So, and I don't want to have a light blasting here because it'll leak through and you'll see it when you look inside. So, it's working. I wanted to move these non-launch tube areas back, so I did that. So they're sitting in a little more because this is supposed to be more recessed and it wasn't. This part I left alone. That's supposed to be kind of forward, and I think this part I left alone. I might have scooched it back a little bit. But now we have the 3, 4, 4, and 4. I don't know if that's exactly right, but it definitely didn't have 6 and 4. I think it was 3 here. I don't remember. It's hard to see the glue areas where I glued it together. Yeah, I don't remember, but it was just not right. It didn't look even. And I know I believe they had less up from the front, and then it was 4, 4, 4, and they just continued that way. So since some of this stuff, especially these non-turbo area, launch tube areas, I scotched back to give it a little more of a trench, like it has on the actual studio model. I needed a floor. Because you could, and even where the launch tubes are permanently, if you didn't light it, you would never know. But lighting it, you can see enough sneaking through the little zigzags. So I just glued a floor down, and then when this comes down, it butts right up, and it blocks all that, lighting. What else did we do? We cut and added this area to the front. It's not finished yet. Of the launch pods, and then I just threw a couple little greeblies in there. Actually, just used some small pieces of styrene, like little tubes and little squares, and filled in that area there with some particles. Same thing here. Filled little greeblies in those flat areas that are boring. There's some things for Anakin's. That's a greebly from Anakin's pod racer. It gives you a choice. Well, here they are. It gave you a choice of if you wanted those 3 fans on his engines, if you wanted them really down straight closed almost, I guess, then you use those. And if you wanted them wide open, you use those. I used those 2 to make that greebly on both sides. And then the ones I used were the ones where they're kind of in between. They're not closed, but they're not fully open. They're like that, like it's getting ready to close. That'll look nice. They'll get some detail here, and I know there's some detail running across the. Well, I'll run some small little tubing. I'm gonna frame this out with. It gets some small little tubing above these bays. And that reminds me another thing. And then these launch tubes are way too tall. Like this trench was way too high on this older kit. And I got an idea from a gentleman from Interstellar Modelers when I was watching his build on the original Monogram. He felt the same way. And when I watched the video, I like to go through and watch videos on something I'm going to build from other people, whether it's from Trekworks or Aztec Dummy or Interstellar Modelers or I'm forgetting a lot of different channels I like to watch, because just like what I'm doing, I learn a lot from those guys that have been doing it for a long while. And hear a simple idea, he's like, yeah, these trenches look, and I'm like, yeah, I thought so too. And he did the same thing. He just glued a little thin strip of styrene, some evergreen styrene, right across this edge, and that makes these launch tubes not look so tall. There's just little vipers coming out of there. So that gives it more of that dimension. And then that leaves you for where there's those red stripes that go across here. You didn't really have the area for the red stripes that went across here with them so tall. It was only just like, the size of that. And the red stripe's supposed to be the size of that. But it's not supposed to cover the whole piece that's comes up, it goes there. So this worked perfect. And then also that'll give me an area that I can add the detail like that. Those little rods that are just above each launch bay tube. I think there's even one above that little spot there, but I can add that detail in, which then will get continued around the opening there. And still have room for the red stripes that go down this side here. So that worked out good. It's coming along okay. Yeah, it's not bad. What else? I think that's really about it. And I drilled the holes for the launch bays, the actual launch tubes. Just took a little drill, and then before I closed it up, I took some window maker from this side and squirted in. I didn't want it to come out so far, but it still ended up coming most of the way out here. But now that it's dried, actually I can see it did sink in. So that's good. That's really good. Which I figured it would sink. Usually the window maker, when it dries, it kind of shrinks back. And they did. So that way the red light looks sunken in there, so it looks like it's more from the inside. So that's why I added the window maker from this side. And then painted it with the transparent red on this side. But yeah, it looks good. The floor comes right up to the lip of this bottom. Might have a little light leak. I might have to go in there with, some really thin of the perfect plastic putty, or even my surface primers that I can paint in there. But I think the perfect plastic putty would be better because it's water soluble, and I can go in a Q-tip and clean out all the excess. See if I can find exactly what ones, because I don't want to over darken them with red, because then they don't let. That's the center one. The second one. Oh, that looks good. So those look good. Let's get this one more dab on this one. And I think this side still looked. I gotta be careful of the fiber optics on that bridge. Yeah, everybody on that side looks good. So we're good to glue this. Get you washing. We're at a half hour in this one already. Holy cow. Alright, most of it's going to be that, and then we'll use a little bit of this. Got clamps ready, so alright, and then we'll, alright, which bay is what? This is you. Okay, like what part do I want to glue first? We'll start with we'll put the glue on the top. This is what I love about the Revell glue with the little applicator. Oh boy. It's like, where can I glue it on this part? I guess anywhere. I think it's gonna fall all that's hidden. So we're gonna find out. I didn't really pay attention, but it should follow that line. So okay, here we go. Still want to be careful. I don't. There you go. Oh, that top piece there does have some detail on it. And then the bottom part of this has the detail on it. Wonder if that's... Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. But we can get some clamps on here. Oh, nice. Yeah, see, it's clamping together really nice. Get one about center. And one at the other end. And then we can finish the detail on the outside and cap these front ends. Because these front ends got to get capped. And then I got to run a border around it. And I might use a tube to run a border around it. Because it does kind of set in. And the edges are kind of higher. And then I might take putty and perfect plastic putty and smear it once the tubing that goes around it dries, and smear it in it and kind of give it a little more dimension than a round tube. Make it more squarish. And that should give us the detail there. And then we got to just do all the detail, the rods and the stuff on here. And then finish all this up front. But yeah, see, that kind of gives it a little more of the look of the actual studio model. So, one side done. Let's do this last side. And let's flip it back up on her back. These lights back here, spots, are working great. They're not overpowering, but yet they give some type of, you can see the detail on the bottom with them, and let you see the detail back there, because that's one area that Monogram didn't do too bad of a job. It might not be accurate as far as where everything's placed, but that being said, it's still nice detail. All this stuff here is not that bad looking under here. Even in the bottom of these pods, I kind of like how they look too. Alright, everything's lined up, everything's good. Let's clamp. We'll put you in center and we'll do the other. Boom. And this will be officially, these clamps are stronger. These I got at Wonderfest with the little ones. These are great, and these are great. I could probably even get a little one on there, yeah. But let's clamp her down good. Oh yeah, beautiful. And then I can file the unevenness in the edges. Yeah, I can file these seams, and because these will be the only seam work I can see I'm gonna have to do is on these landing pods, and get these little bars a little more even. Wonder if I can scoop. They just didn't get them lined up from the factory. This side's not bad. We look pretty tight ski everywhere. I think just like I did on that other side. I'm going to give a little dab of glue in there, because I don't think I was able to see where these actually do finally pinch together, because of the way I cut that notch out. Yeah, and I did do it on that side, yeah. Definitely want to make sure everything's lining up. I can file this so that fits better. I can file that so that fits better. And we'll come in and clean up this edge on the inside. Mainly it looks like it's going to be edge cleaning on the inside, and then on the ends here we cut that seam away. So that saved us there. We'll just have to clean up where those two meet right there. But there she is. We are glued together. Oh, we got a foot that's sitting weird. There we go. That's better. Let's not have you on top of that. Let's have you. So there it is. We'll let that sit, and then I'll go through and hit it with some thin set so it fills up any of the seams that are not completely filled with glue or tight. And we'll be back with another update. Well, okay. Been getting a lot of scratch building done on this. So I haven't been filming much of it for a while because I just got to kind of focus and thinking, and it's just too hard to entertain and talk while you're doing all this and thinking about what I want to do to make this at least look as close as possible to the filming miniature, as best you can with this kit. But it's coming along good, and I'm liking it. You know, and then maybe later on I might go get the Mobius one, which is a beautiful version of this ship. That's, at least as far as the detail work, is all accurate. You know, where things are placed. Like this is way too far down. This piece should be actually underneath partly of where this nameplate is, but it's just too small. So I just set it to the side. And these photo etch pieces are actually made for the Mobius kit, but it worked fine for here. It's pretty much in the scale. I don't know how. I haven't had the two side to side, but I know they're fairly close to scale. And the Mobius might be a little bit bigger than this one. But yeah, got all these little greeblies put on here. Got this strip done. That makes these trenches look these launch tubes look a lot smaller than they look just way too tall. So we did that. Did some greeblies, little pieces of styrene to add detail in these areas here. Actually, that's one of those raising things from Anakin's pod racer. It's what I used there. And just little square stocks of styrene that I would just cut in little shapes. Put a couple here. Did some round tubing detail that you see on the filming miniature above these launch tube areas and this kind of center flat area. The trench right here that we cut in is all in. It's got little greeblies inside there, and then I bordered it with some real fine styrene rod, and then just gave it a sand to kind of flatten it off. Built my own little grid thing here. It's a little bigger than what's supposed to be on there, but it gives the idea. It's just too hard to make it too small because those uprights would have been like, those are about 1 millimeter, maybe a hair less. To try to cut little pieces and make it smaller, but it gives it the idea. From a distance, it pulls in the idea. And then I capped the fronts off because they just had open holes. Just used a flat styrene on there, and then took that same rod styrene and just wrapped it around, because it kind of has like a recess in the center here on these caps. So I just capped this whole front end off with some rod, and then used some perfect plastic putty to fill any weirdness between the flat styrene that covers the whole hole and then the rod going around it, and then just sanded it so it's all blends in, which came out great. And then I put a little couple greeblies inside the little recessed area on them. So it's working good. So I'm ready to hit these with a primer now. But I had to go in and mask off, I used a liquid mask because I thought I had some extra sets of window masks from Aztec Dummy. Oh, and I got a phone call. Okay, sorry about that. I forget where I was talking about, but yeah. So all the scratch building that I wanted to do, I believe, is done on this. I think it's as good as I'm willing to get her, and we did quite a bit. We had a lot of detail here on these pieces, a lot of detail in here. I got this wonderful bridge from Shapeways that's accurate, or at least way more accurate than what was on there. The one that was molded in there didn't even stick up high enough. Photo etch helped out a lot, but that just makes capping those off and adding that trench. Adding that trench and a little bit of the detail work, and once you get this primer on, it pulls everything together and things don't just stick out, like all the things you add on don't just pop. So I believe that will do the same for the rest. And just going through and make sure I have everything that needs to be masked. Most of our window holes are just open until I stick fiber optics in. But I went through and used my micro mask to close off the launch tubes, so I can start painting that and not get any paint in the launch tubes. And then last thing I did was micro mask those spotlights that I put down here, the 3 of them. Went through and sanded everything. Got to put something in here to keep any paint from going in our landing bay area. And I got to pull this off, because this is just temporary. Because we want to paint this separate. Before I'm going to put a clear part in where this red light is. The engine part here I'm going to leave just the way it is. But I just have the back of this taped on. I can just pull that off, stuck it in there, and stick some tissue paper in there so we don't get paint blasting in there, all our lights in there. But I just wanted to give you an update on where we're at. It's getting down to it. Oh, let me show you the ID on the base for it. I got you. I got this wooden part. You can just go on Hobby Lobbies online, and they come in a 2-pack for like really cheap. These not too thick, just thin for these smaller ships. You don't really need a big plaque for. And they have the fancy ends. And then I figured I could just drill a hole through for my rod, which will give it more stability than just trying to, epoxy it to this base. But this is the original base, and then they wanted to use this little flimsy little stand that went up. We're going to putty that in and make it look like craters like the rest of this. But yeah, this can go like that. Then this is just more of a decorative piece. That'll go like that, and then the ship will sit on top of it. And then I have that photo etch Galactica name tag that I'll put on, on the front side. And then she'll sit on there like that, and I think that'll be cool. And now I'll have to see if I like the height, the length of this rod or pipe. But I think that'll be cool once we get this filled in and painted up. Then I'll probably use that black stain that you just wipe off. You can still see the wood grain. That's what I think I'm going to do the actual wood in. And this will probably pick a moon style look. The whites and the grays. Kind of a lunar surface, because that's what she looks like. It's like a moon, because there's a lot of craters on that. But that's where we're at.